Hello and welcome to the Comedy Slab podcast. I'm Shane O'Connor. He's Adrian Lacey. If you think of us as the kind of Anton Deck of podcasting, but without the jungle and the divorce cases and the
car accidents.
The car, yeah. In fact, we're nothing like Anton Deck of the podcast world, are we? Now I think about it. Now we do the list.
No. And they have a full head of hair. Well, mostly. Anyway, fuller.
I was going to say that. I was going to say it's like if you imagine we're like Yul Brynner meets Telly Savalas. So just like essentially we're bald. It didn't kind of really work anyway. It is the Comedy Slab podcast. If you've not caught up with us before, each week we'll alternately choose a comedy program to watch. We'll digest it. We'll dissect it on the slab. And then we'll leave you in no doubt as to whether we liked it or not. I got to choose the homework for this week, last week. Hang on.
Last week.
I have to write this down now.
I think I know what you mean. I'm not sure they do.
Last week, I got to choose this week's homework week.
Well, yeah, okay. It nearly works. Get on with it.
And it was something you said that made me do it, actually.
He made me do it, Governor. I didn't want to.
I'm not taking any blame for this.
Last week, we talked about Josh Howie, didn't we? Josh Howie's losing it. And you said there was lots of Jewish humour in there. And he was...
Jewish.
You compared him to Woody Allen, didn't you?
No, I was just trying to get a feel of what you liked and whether you like Jewish humour or... I mean, I didn't think Josh Howie was particularly heavy-duty Jewish humour because it's a mainstream show. But anyway, yes, that's roughly the case.
I thought I decided we'd go for something that is pretty heavy-duty Jewish humour.
Heavy-duty?
Yeah.
Are you allowed to say that?
The inevitable
jury.
Larry David and Curb Your Enthusiasm. And I kind of chose an episode at random, really. I'm not sure whether I chose the best episode that has ever been in the whole 9 series.
I have to consult my paperwork. Was it Series 4, Episode 5?
Series 4, Episode 5, yeah. The was it the Forward, was it called? The Forward?
The Fivewood.
Fivewood.
Episode 5wood. Shows how much you know.
Yeah. And as tradition has it in this podcast, because I chose the comedy, you normally and I normally will go. So come on, then give us your first impressions. I mean, it's something you'd seen before, isn't it? Though this,
I'd see not this particular episode, but I'd been a fan of this show when it was on the Beeb. I think it was BBC 4 in the early days of BBC 4, perhaps, or if I've remembered wrongly, it must be BBC 2. But yeah, it was an appointment to view or appointment to record in those days. So what would the headline be? Something like. Well, you remember, we were just talking before we hit record about TV ads, because you've got a head full of TV ads. Mine stop about 1985, but yours carry on and you keep topping up.
I was laughing there because we spent about 15 minutes off air the one day just laughing at the Harry Enfield take on the Brentford Nylons advert, Deptford Draylons.
Which I haven't seen and still haven't seen. Anyway, I was thinking of the... do you remember the Welcome Back to Butter? And it was a bit of a sort of welcome back to Larry David moment. So there's not much of a headline. And
how did you get into it in the first place then? Because I missed Curb. I had no idea it was even on the BBC.
You missed the Curb and tripped up. Yeah. I don't know. I honestly don't know. It is some years ago. It's probably easily... Well, BBC 4 hasn't been around 20 years, but maybe 15 years.
It was 10. It's 10 years, isn't it? They've done 9 series. That I think they've.
Oh, they had a hiatus. I had one of those. Gave me a hernia. Oh no, hang on, that doesn't work.
Stitches.
I don't remember how I heard about it, but I very often go on recommendation. Maybe in those days. I mean, I don't know where the time goes now. I used to sit down and randomly watch TV, like I think a good quality life should have time for. Obviously, it's time management in my case. The time, days aren't any shorter. It's just how I'm managing them these days. But
although the downfall with that is, I kind of did that. But with this electronic program guide that you've got on most TVs now for digital television, I don't know about you, but I find myself with the best intentions in the world to stretch my grey matter, I end up looking at the shopping channel.
No.
I think,
I wouldn't admit to that if I were you.
Oh, quadcopter, that sounds quite good. I wonder what that is. I'm going to have a look. And I always, the other thing I get mesmerised by is the jewellery channels, because I've never tuned onto one of these jewellery channels and thought, what a nice person. I'd like to buy something off them. Where did they? Anyway, sorry, yeah. So no,
I've got to be careful. I know a couple of people who have been on shopping channels, and they are nice people.
This just the jewellery ones. This is the jewellery ones.
I think it's what the job does to them. Oh right, well I don't. Yeah, possibly not the jewellery ones.
And they always do that thing, don't they? Where where they're showing a ring and they always put their thumb at the back of it and move it about.
Oh yeah, and get it to glisten.
Yeah. Drives me up the wall, that does.
I've got to be very careful because I just got that sneaking suspicion if I hit really hard times and everything, all the savings run out, I might need to be on that channel.
Money's good, isn't it? I often think, I wonder, but you don't get to say, do you? If I could just do gadgets, can I just do electronics? I'd do it.
Maybe you should set up your own channel with that. You've spotted a gap in the market.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know whether it works like that. How can you just do? I don't know. Anyway, we'll
have a YouTube channel for next to no cost.
Yeah, and you can do it live, couldn't you? Oh, sorry, this is another podcast.
We could take this off grid. This conversation.
I think we should do, shouldn't we? Really?
The poor listener.
Yeah. Talking about getting into it, the reason I asked is I was working with a guy, a sports reporter called Jeff Foster, really nice guy, and. He kept saying to me, Shane, you've got to. Have you seen Curb yet? Have you seen Curb yet? And he lent me series 1 on DVD.
Right.
And you know what it's like? You have it for ages, and people recommend, and you think, I must get around to that. And he kept going, Have you watched it? Seriously, have you watched it? You'll love it. You'll really relate to it. You've got to watch it. So I got him to thank for it. Really, he did actually say as well. He said you'll see a lot of yourself in Larry David. I don't know what he meant by that. Bloke was an idiot.
Yeah, I'm going to process that for a bit. But we've got 3 audio clips to come from the show, of course, and it's an HBO production, home box office. I reminded myself what those letters stood for.
They make some gear, they do, though, don't they?
Oh, it's a mark of quality. I know you're a musician, but it's like finding a record label. If anyone likes the stuff on ECM label, for instance, you either hate everything because it's all the same genre as sort of modern jazz label.
Yeah.
HBO, it's absolutely rock solid. I just think I would give anything on HBO time, and if I didn't like it, I would think it was my fault.
Yeah,
I'd done something wrong.
It's interesting. It reminded me, actually. It's interesting because in another episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm, I think Larry's going to do a show for somebody. He writes a show or something. I can't remember whether it's because it's a bit like life imitating art all the way through, isn't it? And imitating life kind of thing. Yeah. But he goes to a meeting, and they go to a meeting at HBO, and he says, "Why have you brought it to HBO? Why have you come to us?" And he said, "Because you can't swear on the other networks."
It's the very worst reason for doing it. But it is true. There's a lot of effing and jeffing. We should warn people, carers, guardians, younger people should probably cover their ears.
Yeah, well, what I've done with it,
we won't have effing and jeffing here. You've skirted round it, haven't you? For
I've cut it out in places, or started a sentence just to past the offending word. But it is for adults, isn't it? This program and the series. There's no question about it.
But our show about it, I should say, we will try and be family friendly talking about it. It's a bit like a U trailer for an X-rated. Gosh, that's old certificates, isn't it?
Yeah. It's interesting because when I was choosing the clips, because if I choose the homework, then I do the clips, and if you choose the homework, of course, you do the clips then. And when I was choosing the clips, I thought, shall I leave the swearing in, or should, because obviously it is. I personally don't think it's that gratuitous. I think it is quite contextual, certainly for some of the.
It's only in one scene, particularly where there's a rage roaring.
Yeah. And I thought we never swear, so it's a bit daft and then you have to get an explicit thing for the podcast and that. And I think it's a bit stupid, isn't it, really? Because we don't swear. And then we're putting material in that's got swearing in it. It's if I can help it, I probably wouldn't. That's why I decided not to do it, really. But
okay. Before
we
flipping good idea, by the way.
I should flopping cocoa. It's something like that in Father Ted. Oh, you don't like Father Ted, do you? I was going to say in Father Ted, where there's a sign that says no swearing. And he says, I don't know why you keep fupping saying that, you fupper.
Actually, I saw one the other day. Sorry, one of our many digressions. And I am coming round to it more. But here's the thing. Because of the change in Ireland, I mean, it's more socially progressive now, where your roots come from, the ones that didn't fall out.
Yeah.
The clue is in the title, O'Connor. It just looks like an historical thing. With it, the power of the church is much diminished for some not particularly good reasons, and it looks like a period piece to me now. And that's not a criticism, but it's an important snapshot of where life was then. And I have to say, I've got a feeling Father Ted helped that along, helped to make Ireland a bit more progressive, in my humble opinion.
I think if you go outside of Dublin, I think if you head down to some of the more rural areas, and if you head across to Galway or maybe to Limerick, I think you'd still find parochial houses, and I think the church is quite. I think it is progressive in Dublin. I'm not sure how much further it goes.
Right. Well, you could draw an analogy with London and. Against rural areas in England.
You might do that, but the rest of us up here think you're a bunch of heathens.
In your tiny little village there, where everyone's related to everyone else.
We haven't even got a village. We're even outside the village. That's how bad it is here. Now, I was going to say, before we head to the clips, can I just special honorary mention to the music?
Oh, yes, it's good fun, isn't it?
It's just, I didn't realise, it's written by a guy called Luciano Michelini.
Ah, that's a good Jewish name.
Yeah. And it's a song called Frolic that he wrote for an Italian movie called La Bellissima Estate.
Right.
So it wasn't written for Curb at all. It was almost like a piece of library music that languished for about 20 years. I think it was used in this film, and then nobody used it at all. Everybody and his dog use it now. So if you don't know the piece of music that we're talking about, if you heard it, you'd recognise it instantly, I would have thought. But apparently, Luciano, who wrote the music, has been interviewed several times since Curb, and every time he gets asked about, do you like Curb? And he loves the series. he loves Larry David. Yeah, he loves Larry David and loves the series. So it's kind of doubly fitting, isn't it? Really, I suppose, in a way.
I'm sure it's nothing to do with the extra vast royalties he gets off the back of it. I wouldn't be that cynical. You know me.
I should imagine that helps to ease any pain that you might have about it, don't you think? I think you're right.
Any moral qualms.
Yeah. Do you want? Should we head to a clip? Do you want to?
Yes, let's do it. Oh gosh, sorry, you've probably got the details in front of you because you're far more efficient. I will have them ready by the time we get to the end of it.
I am very officious. Just to kind of give you a little bit of a heads up, we start realising that David Schwimmer from Friends is in the episode because he's starring a lot. I don't know if you caught up with this. I don't know if you'd need to have seen the rest of the episodes preceding this. But Schwimmer is starring alongside Larry David in The Producers. Do you know The Producers? The Mel Brooks thing?
Yes.
Spring Time for Hitler and all that kind of stuff. They're starring. He's starring in that alongside David Schwimmer, Larry David.
Is this within the plot?
Yes.
It wasn't clear because the story's already rolling. It's not a self-contained episode. Is that a Broadway version?
Yes.
Or a TV? Yeah, Broadway version.
It's a Broadway version, but they're rehearsing in LA, aren't they, at the time?
Yeah,
and he hadn't been getting on with the choreographer at all. They'd had in the previous episodes they'd had a real bad relationship with each other, and they got off on the wrong foot, as Larry does with everybody. He kind of doesn't seem to
virtually all the time.
Yeah. And now all of a sudden you see like the choreographer saying, "Oh, Larry, you've been doing your homework. Oh, you're fantastic. You're really good." And so obviously there's got this great relationship with the choreographer now, who's very camp, isn't he? I think it's fair to say.
I would go so far as to guess he might be of a gay persuasion. I feel fairly secure in that.
And of course, all of this is rubbing off on Larry as well, isn't it? He started to all the camp mannerisms are starting to manifest themselves. But just in order for you can hear this clip, the wonderful twist of reality that they do, they've got David Schwimmer's dad.
I'm laughing even before you say it.
Has got a company that's produced these nuts and raisin snacks.
Yeah, was it Health Glow?
Called Health Glow, yeah. I mean, in reality, David Schwimmer's dad was a lawyer.
Yeah, I know. I had to look that up, and obviously you have.
Well,
I would have loved it if it had actually been true.
Well, I don't, because I spent a lot of time looking stuff up when I was watching this, because I'm thinking I don't know what's true and what isn't, because some of it is and some of it isn't, which is the wonderful way that they play with reality. Anyway, that's where we pick up the story, where Larry and the choreographer have gone to get a snack, and lo and behold, what do they see?
Oh my God, my friend Anthony was supposed to come to rehearsal. That's right, and he didn't show up. Oh, I'm so worried about him. He's a doctor. He's gorgeous. He's smart, obviously. And he's single now. He just had a horrible breakup, so I'm kind of looking for somebody to match him up with.
Is he good looking?
Gorgeous.
Ba-da-ba-da-ba-da-ba. Pirate's booty. Pirate's booty.
You're embarrassing me. Stop it. No.
I can't have pirate's booty?
No, but you can have a pair.
Hey!
What?
Look at this. Health Glow.
Those are David Schwimmer's dad's nuts.
Yeah.
Yes. Check these out. Good stats.
Look at this. There's only 4 cashews in here.
Oh, the numbers are good.
They're all the same. This one's got 4, 3.
That's probably a mistake.
The whole cashew raisin balance is askew.
It's awful.
There's got to be more cashews.
Absolutely.
Schwimmer's dad's really pulling a fast one here, you know? All right, well,
you can still eat 2 packages of them.
okay, fine.
All right.
2 packages. You know what? I got to get out of this place. I got to get to my office.
Okay.
I think that for me, what I found funny was the very triviality of it. You know, that Larry David, first, earlier on we've seen him, he wants to suggest to David Schwimmer some different nut mixes he could have.
what kind of combos they could have, and
it's a bit like going up to a famous actor and saying, "Oh, you could be in this," or "I really enjoyed you in that." And the gag there for me was, David Schwimmer says, everyone comes up to me and suggests, different. It's not as straightforward as you think. Words to that effect.
Yeah.
You have to understand the product better.
He does all through the series. He does this kind of. Larry David has got this rationale, which I find myself doing. I don't know if you've ever done it as well. In this particular instance, he talks about the cashew raisin balance. Like it's
the ratio between it's just not enough cashews.
Like it's a kind of a scientific formula, that kind of thing. He's got this other one. I don't know if you've seen another episode where he talks about the what's the latest time that you can call somebody. I've
had that conversation, and that is kind of real life, isn't it?
Yeah,
and
he's having a conversation.
I bet he gets obsessive about it, doesn't he?
Well, because he's saying to his wife, he said, "Well, it's 9:30 if you're a stranger, but if it's a friend or a family member, then it's 10 o'clock." And so he's kind of rationalised all of it. That's what I love about him, is that he rationalises the most ridiculous and mundane things that don't need to have laws applied to them. But like the cashew raisin balance, he's obviously he's thought about. This troubles him now. It's. It becomes his cause, which I just kind of love that.
Well, but he's got a point, though. I mean, I think very similarly, 4 cashews is not enough in a packet against raisins, especially when you put them. It's like top billing goes to cashews. The expectation is of a higher cashew raisin ratio. I am actually with him on that.
Although he does suggest that why don't you just call it raisins?
And you see, I wasn't happy about that, because then you would think the cashews was some kind of mistake, and you could choke on them because your teeth are expecting raisins. You're getting your gullet all ready for raisins, and so suddenly you've got a cashew then.
Yeah, but as he says, the cashew would then come as a bit of a surprise. It'll be a pleasant. But as you're rightly saying, it might not be a pleasant.
How about raisins top billing with guest appearance by cashews? That kind of lowers the expectation, isn't it?
Also starring raisins.
Yeah. Starring.
Guest star.
Dubious.
That suggests they might not be there every week.
In every package.
Just guest starring raisins. It's an easy thing to get into, isn't it? Don't you think?
Well, I think we've been suckered by this balance, yeah.
I just love the way he looks at life. The interesting thing is, and I don't know if it applies to Curb, but because obviously the thing we haven't mentioned is Larry David wrote Seinfeld.
Yes, yeah, we should. I was going to mention that, but yeah,
he's one of the lead writers on it, wasn't he? And was you a big fan of Seinfeld? I wasn't really into Seinfeld at all. I didn't.
No, I never got into it, and I showed my ignorance last episode talking about Larry David, and I think I've only ever seen one full episode. And unfortunately, I've seen it years after it was a big thing. I'm a sucker for, or used to be more, the buzz around a show. But of course, years later, there's no buzz.
No.
And you feel a bit lonely. And it almost seemed too late to try and even catch up with it.
I mean, when you're looking on paper, though, I mean, the cast, I mean, Seinfeld obviously is an American institution, is he? But it's Sarah Louise Dreyfus again, isn't it? Is who we looked at in Veep early on in this podcast.
Right, yeah.
She's in it as well. And the other two, I don't remember the other two guys, but from what I've seen of them, very, very accomplished comedy actors. But what I wanted to say was that there's a story, and I think it's true, and I think it could be Seinfeld who tells this story. He said in rehearsals, they used to go, like, they do a table read and they go through the script. And people would say, this whole thing here, I think it was Norm was the Larry David character. Was it Norm? Was there a guy called Norm in Seinfeld? Forgive me if you're a Seinfeld fan.
Yes, yeah, they'd be shouting at their iPod player or pod player.
But he'd say, this story, first of all, this wouldn't happen to somebody. And secondly, if it did, you would not react like that. And Larry David, 9 times out of 10, would say, well, actually, that did happen to me. And that's exactly what I did.
So, coming back to TV ads, there's a guy talking, it's an insurance ad on at the moment. Guy saying, I had to brake sharply because a horse pulled in front of me with a knight on it, and it was dressed.
There's a horse wearing a dress, it was followed by a tin man. Not something you expect to see in magazine stuff. Yeah, it was.
And then cut to, it did actually happen within the terms of the ad.
Yeah.
And that's why we all need Aviva insurance.
And I think part of why Larry David's writing is so good is because he just lives such an outrageous life in an outrageous way. I think he just I think if you've ever seen him interviewed, I think he is very confrontational and forthright, and that combination kind of just gets him into situations where you think, why don't you just step back from that now?
Yeah, I think his answer would be because it's more fun doing it this way.
Yeah. I think you're absolutely right. Absolutely right. I love Jeff, his manager.
Yeah, understated, but very dependable, very reliable character.
Because it's all ad-libbed. It's all improv. Did you know that?
Yes. Now, this is one show where we don't have to say we're not sure whether it is or not, because there's many shows we've kind of reviewed where it isn't always clear. Although I maintain the view that a lot of shows, maybe the majority, are born out of ad-libbing. But this, the giveaway is people do actually trip up over each other's lines or interrupt each other in a way that you don't expect in a polished, scripted show.
Yeah.
But you could say that adds to the realism.
It does for me. I mean, I kind of, although there was one scene in this episode which is the worst I've ever seen, where there's the four of them having Jeff and Larry and the two wives having the conversation about being thrown out of the club that they're members of. And then having a bit of a screaming match, and and I thought that was really bad. There was a lot of over talk, which kind of ruined it rather than made it more realistic for me in a way. It's the danger, isn't it? I suppose you walk that fine.
I guess so, because we're not expecting absolute real life on our screens. Certainly not of comedy shows. So it's got to be a kind of sort of hyper reality. So. Yeah, there's a limit. But then I've had a problem for years with handheld cameras other than in sort of mockumentary style. Apparently, you'll know this because you'll have swatted up, or maybe you saw it. This is born out of a mockumentary, a one-off, as they thought. Larry David, Curb Your Enthusiasm was the full title. And that makes sense for a mockumentary, and it makes sense for me, like The Office and so on. Okay, I can see it's a wobbly shot. Yeah, okay, so I believe there's someone there in real time they're aware of. It doesn't make any sense to me to have a wobbly shot where the characters aren't aware of the camera. Just draws attention to something that you then have to tell your brain. I've had years of experience now, and I should probably shut up about it, but it just doesn't work for me.
I know what you mean, because It
says, I'm here. I'm a camera operator. Yeah. I'm here. Therefore, they must know I'm here.
Although I think there is that process that you go through that kind of suspension of disbelief, that kind of, I find myself, even knowing what I know, kind of getting so immersed in something that it's only afterwards that you think, oh, hang on a second, why did that happen like that?
Mm.
I mean, I at one point found myself, and it's only because I'd watched it twice, as we do generally when we're looking at these things, but the second time I watched it, when they were doing an improv on something, I found myself thinking, how do they do the reverse shots then? Because that then takes away the spontaneity, doesn't it? When you've got to do it, because you've got to do it again, essentially, to do a reverse shot.
Yes. Well, we don't know how many takes they're doing anyway, but I think still something can still be called improv, even if you've run it several times. You're following the same story. If it's just reaction shots, then, well, it's the classic noddies thing. That's not too difficult, and I don't have a problem with them running it again.
Yeah.
What must be fun in games is where they've run it again, and the poor old editors tearing their hair out, if they've got any, because the lines just don't match.
Well, did you hear towards the end of the episode there was a really bad overdub?
Oh, terrible voice. I was going to say, I'm afraid that's knocked off at least half a star, because we rate out of 5, of course, at the end of the show. They're losing half a star, I'm afraid, because I'm an old sound geek. And it was a terrible sound edit. It didn't even sound like Larry David. No. It sounded like someone doing a poor impersonation in a totally different acoustic environment, different room.
Yeah.
He says, speaking in a reverberant room since I've moved, or even more reverberant room.
But there are ways of getting around that, aren't there? I mean, you could even drop the sound down lower. It was way too high, I thought, in the mix, and you could have dropped it down lower, and that would have lessened the impact. But it was just awful. It's just terrible. Terrible.
I couldn't believe I was. I mean, you might expect that on YouTube for one of your mates who's not a professional, but it was so amateurish and stood out like a sore thumb. Anyway, I'm getting on my high horse.
Should we have another clip?
I think it's time. I need to calm down.
Should we have a clip?
Right. Yes. Now, there is a funeral taking place towards the middle of this episode. This is someone at his kind of, would you call it a country club?
Yeah, well,
it's not even a sports club. But
it's actually it's quite a good friend of him, Marty Funkhauser. Although you couldn't tell from that particular episode, becomes quite one of the main characters. The guy sitting down who says "I'm in mourning." He's one of the main characters as time goes on, and it's his dad that's died.
And Larry, as ever, inappropriately says, what was it? We should play tennis or something sometime.
Let's play golf. He wants to play golf. And he goes, I'm in mourning. So
it doesn't have to be soon.
You just find yourself going, just leave it. It's just one of those. Sorry, anyway, go on, I interrupted.
So the body, remind me his dad's name. Gosh, I've got so many screens open here. I'm trying to multitask, which is fatal.
I can't remember his dad's name. It's Marty Funkhauser's dad's name. Dad, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm so glad you pronounced Funkhausen first. I was going to double check the pronunciation. But anyway, yes, I'm looking at the right series here. Anyway, so he's lying in the casket, as they call it in America. And he's lying there.
It's an open casket, isn't it? And Larry goes,
yes.
Why have we got to go and look at him? You think... Is this the last thing you'll do for the bloke? I mean, it's not that much of an ask, is it?
Anyway, so it's Leo Funkhauser, yes, Leo. And presumably a keen golfer, and there he is lying in state, as it were, with his golf club, or is it his golf club? So they Larry and his manager. Schlep over, to use a Yiddish expression, to the casket, the coffin.
What? My 5-foot's in there. What? Go see for yourself. It's my 5-foot. Oh my God. What's my 5-foot doing in the casket? I have no idea. Well, you probably want to be buried with his golf club. Yeah? Sven must have put my club in there Probably on purpose.
That's a horrible thing to do.
That club's irreplaceable. It's 10 years old. They don't make it anymore.
I'm so sorry. Sorry, man.
You got your clubs in your trunk?
Yeah? No, no.
Why?
Because I like the way mine feels.
Your club, I can get at any store in the country.
But I like the feel.
It doesn't matter. It's one club.
I like that club.
Why should this guy be buried in eternity with my club? That's not fair. That's not fair. I'll buy you a new club today. The exact
same one. And it better have the same feel.
And of course, as the episode goes on, only Jeff would put a golf club in with his own name on it. They've all got it.
Kind of didn't think that one through, did he? Identifying himself.
Did you put your own name on it? I couldn't believe it. It's just, do you know, I have to say that the whole, I mentioned the music at the start and the theme music I was talking about, but the incidental music I find captivating. And
it has a Yiddish feel, does it not, generally?
Do you know what it reminded me of, though, was and particularly in that scene there, where they go on to then, to try and liberate the golf club. It was very silent movie. You know,
yeah, it's a bit of
like
that, isn't
the
it?
piano kind of doing the thing, he uses that effect quite a lot, where the music kind of tells the story.
Yes, although, yeah, I mean that's certainly the case. But I think to come back to Woody Allen for a mo, he kind of picked up on that. They've studied their. Obviously, Marx Brothers, and that's not silent movies, but they've gone back to the Laurel and Hardys and Buster Keatons and so on, and you can tell some influence there, which I think is nice to reference.
He can't be far off the age of Woody Allen, can he? I wouldn't have thought.
I thought you were going to say off the age of Charlie Chaplin or something like that.
No, he's probably got, what, I don't know, 10, 15 years behind him, something like that. I don't know.
Well, that depends whether you think that's far off or he's snapping at his heels. Yeah, certainly Woody's in his 80s now, is he not?
And yeah, I don't know how old Larry is actually, but I mean they kind of. I do think there is a similarity. They're the same kind of storyteller, aren't they? Don't you think they got that kind of? There is a very sort of kindred spirit there. I would have thought.
Yeah, I think so. And since I like Woody, I tend to like this. Although, I've got one or two concerns about the plot. In fact, one concerning the next clip, if we're ready for it. I mean, and this is getting a bit technical and taking an overview of the plot and so on. But just reflecting on it, I felt this next scene just feels a bit engineered to me, looking back. There's some nice callbacks and so on, and knitting together of things. I think someone said on a review show, it may even have been the venerable Bonnie Greer. No, I don't mean Bonnie Greer, I mean Germaine Greer, her well-known sister. No, not her sister at all, but well, maybe sister in arms. Anyway, moving swiftly on, someone has said somewhere in my consciousness on a telly review program I've seen, 3 coincidences and you're out. It's like 3 strikes and you're out. And I certainly counted 2 coincidences. But anyway, we should probably hear this clip before
Before you just say that, go on. What do you mean? What were the 2 coincidences that you saw?
Well, we have the coincidence of David Schwimmer's dad's nuts, if I can use that phrase, which is actually used at one point, which obviously gets you going, as you confessed before we hit record.
It's pathetic.
Anyway, those nuts very conveniently happen to be on full display when Larry David, very conveniently, you could almost say this is 2 coincidences already, if I could only pronounce it, that Larry says, I'm going out for a snack. This is during rehearsals, in rehearsals for the producers. And lo and behold, the snacks he's just talked about that are owned, created by David Schwimmer's dad are there on display. That's certainly one.
See, I don't know. It was like talking to Gary Lineker about Walker's Crisps. That was to me. It was like, I mean, I know his dad doesn't run Walker's Crisps, but it seemed like a well-known brand. You know what I mean? It wasn't a small brand. I didn't. But go on anyway. It's interesting to see how you picked it up. Yeah. What was
it's
the
not a
second
big
one?
gripe. These are very These are niggles. Well, the other thing is this. I think we should play the clip first because I don't want to spoil the clip. We've probably spoiled the episode already for people, but there are thousands of other episodes, as we always say. Do you want to set this up?
Yeah, he's got form before, as they alluded to in the scene as well, with animals, inappropriate behaviour with animals, and I think that's maybe why the thing that you're talking about coincidences and having too many in is that, because this is the thing. The other thing I was thinking is how do you string a narrative together if all you're doing is writing 6 pages of a synopsis and you're not actually writing any dialogue? Do you know what I mean? How do you keep strands? It's quite clever to keep strands going within stories, isn't it, in that kind of context? Because you're employing an actor to improvise, and so they could go in you don't know what direction they're going to go in.
Is it full improvisation?
Oh yeah, he writes about 6 pages, which outline the scenes, and the rest of it is down to the cast.
Right, gosh, that must be quite a head spin.
It's hard to keep on track, but I mean, he'll have a team of people doing that, wouldn't it? Anyway, so he's got, and in previous episodes, he's had form of inappropriate behaviour with dogs. Well, basically with Jeff and Susie's dog, it always seems to be the same dog. I don't know. But this dog is a bit of a rogue as well. They've had problems with him in the past with Oscar. He's done other things as well. And Larry goes to the toilet in all innocence, and there's Oscar, or Oski as they call him. He's lying
an Alsatian, is it not?
Yeah, big Alsatian lying in the downstairs loo. And Larry didn't really know what to do, does he? In fairness to him, he kind of thinks, he steps over and he carries on to go to the toilet. And then the next thing, from outside of the toilet, and the dog's barking, and it comes out. He goes, "The dog's bit my penis." And so this is in the ER room, isn't it? These Americans would say in the hospital afterwards. That he's sitting there reflecting on his injuries.
Dog should be put to sleep.
He should be put to sleep.
You think so too?
Biting people, Jeff. That's
He's
dangerous.
never bitten anybody before, ever. Hey, it's not the first time with you and the dog. I know that.
What does that mean? What happened with the dog?
Tell her.
Nothing happened with the dog.
Well, obviously something happened because he just said it's not the first incident. What
He
happened?
pet the dog before. Dog was in his lap. He got up, he had a boner.
Why did the dog give you an erection? Okay, and why didn't you tell me about that?
First of all, that's not true, okay? That's not true.
Why would he say that?
Because he's a moron. Because
I'm making it up from thin air. What happened?
I was petting the dog, and then the dog left, and I got up, and I adjusted my pants. You know,
Because you had an erection?
No, because I just had to adjust my pants, that's all. And then Susie saw me.
What was the dog doing to you?
Nothing, I was just petting it. You see what
Oh
you
my
did?
God.
You see what you did now?
Wait a second.
Do you see what you
Wait
did?
a second. Is that why Ted Danson didn't want you to take care of his dog?
The thing is, I quite like the fact it's never resolved as to why he should appear to be aroused with a dog in his lap. He doesn't appear to want to. I don't know. He sort of tries to deny it, doesn't he?
He doesn't answer it, does he? Certainly.
No, but unconvincingly, in a way that you're a politician evading a question. You think, hang on, you're hiding something here. Anyway, well, when the dog was removed, he wasn't hiding it, and it was apparently on display through his clothing.
Do you know, a lot of the previous episodes of the podcast, we complained about, you know, there weren't great lines or great gags or great jokes in there. And I don't know. When Cheryl says, "Is that why Ted Danson didn't want you to take care of his dog at the end of the scene?"
That is a good line, because again, you create whatever you want of that line, don't you?
Yeah. and it's just that, you know, all the doubt that starts to creep in, and it's like the stuff it's not the stuff that's even, I was going to say written, it's not written, but I don't know, there's that kind of whole thing that goes on in your head, and you like you say, you imagine, what on earth, what did he do, what happened with them, and what was, you know,
and then it reflects badly on us, doesn't it? If we think the worst of people or come up with some really filthy, dubious storyline, they can always say, well, no, I didn't have that in mind at all.
Yeah.
And then point the finger back at you. Anyway, I was just going to say, this this dog thing sort of, as it were, came out of nowhere. And then it leads to our next coincidence, which is that the choreographer's
friend,
yes,
Anthony, the doctor,
possibly would-be squeeze, one would have to say. The way he talks glowingly about him. Obviously, he's really intelligent. Anyway,
see, I thought the other way. I thought he was trying to fix him up with Larry.
Well, I suppose yes. The thing is, because Larry ends up becoming a bit camp, as you've said earlier, in the presence of Steve, the choreographer, who's most definitely camp. And then there is sorry, this is a digression, but it is a nice plot point that Steve sees what appears to be, well, it's a photo of a man, a rather handsome young man, if one may say so, on Larry's table, but it's only the picture that frame came with. Yeah, because actually, in all fairness, I might complain about coincidence and so on, and stretched plot points or whatever, but it did actually happen to me that I was given, as I thought, a framed picture by, this is some years ago, my then girlfriend. And it's only ages later I thought, actually, is that just what it comes with? And she meant me to put a picture of her in or something. And I've still got the picture, and I'm still not sure if it's a kind of temporary picture that comes with the frame.
What do you just to keep it out of the way, do you, or something? You just put it somewhere where nobody can see it, or
kind of lower profile. Where it was in the loo at my last house. So shows what esteem it's held in, or some might say what esteem that ex-girlfriend's held in. That would not be fair. Anyway, so where are we with this? Yeah, the second coincidence is when Larry David has to go to hospital with his somewhat ruptured pecker or damaged goods, and lo and behold, who should the doctor be but the choreographer's friend, Anthony. Yeah. But again, I know I'm saying this, and people will say, "Oh, don't be just a boy. You've got to have that." And the other thing is, of course, coincidences happen. My dad used to collect coincidences, if you can collect them. He used to write them down and swap notes with his brother.
Oh, really?
So it does happen. They do happen. So
the first time he did that, did his brother say, "That's incredible"?
That's funny. I've just
been writing them down as well.
Sorry, I'll ruin your gag. That's a lovely gag. Yes, if only that went. No, that's good. Yes, I enjoyed it. Yeah.
Can I just say about the thing that I love about Curb Your Enthusiasm is that they have a lot of celebrity guests in there.
Yes.
Ricky Gervais has appeared in it. Ted Danson is a regular on it. Michael J. Fox, and without exception, because I had to look up the Ricky Gervais scene. He treats badly or has a row with every celebrity guest that he has on the show, which I just love. It's just a really great way of subverting what is a standard in comedy. The comedy guest star.
Do you think that was partly Ricky's influence with extras? Inspiration. I
do wonder about that, because it is that kind of cringe comedy as well, isn't it? I mean, when he has Michael J. Fox, because Michael J. Fox has got Parkinson's disease, and he's saying to Michael J. Fox, who's living in the flat above him, "I can hear you banging about with your boots on." and he's going, "No, it's my Parkinson's twitch." He said that's what it is, and Michael J. Fox actually offers him a can of Coke. And as he gets it out the fridge, you can see Michael J. Fox, his tremor, he's shaking, and he's shaking his can of Coke. And Larry opens it, and he just sprays all over him. And Michael J. he says, "Did you do that on purpose?" And Michael J. Fox says, "Parkinson's." And he kind of plays him back with it. It's just, but he always treats them, but he just has a really great time of treating them badly. I think it's just, I just love the way that they do that, really. But
yeah. Bro.
I think we're getting the time for picking out some stars, aren't we? I think for to give it a score out of 10.
Yeah, the star rating. I did actually give this some thought. As I say, I'm afraid as an old sound bore, half a star off for not very good sound, and it's actually not just the one occurrence we're talking about. Yeah. There's mic rustling, which, again, fine on a mockumentary, because we know people have got to be mic'd up. Yeah. If you want to hide the mics for a mockumentary, we don't normally have to, but if you do, rustling, that's realism. Doesn't make sense when we're not to believe that they can see the cameras, they're not aware they're taking part in a TV show. So sorry about that.
I'm glad they didn't choose anything from series 1 then, because that was a horror show in terms of being rough and ready.
Right. Well, yeah. Well, it's like Annie Hall, Woody Allen's 1977 picture. Technically it's very rough. I still love it to bits, but you start off with a lower budget, and hopefully if you've got a hit show on your hands, you can have a bigger budget. But they need a bigger budget on the sound, I'd have to say. Yeah. And I'm not blaming the sound person, because I don't know the background, and it might be just the constraints they're given and the budget they're given. That's the least worst way of doing it. But I am available if they ever decide they can afford a boom operator or a rod operator.
Well, they have got the green light for Series 10, so...
oh, right, okay. Well,
I'll book your airfare.
Having said that, I haven't done it for years, but it's worth a try. So I'm going to say 3.5 stars. It could have been 4 on a good day. I know. And also, it doesn't quite do it for me in the way it does for you, but it was an enjoyable view, and thank you for bringing me back to Buddha, or Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Okay. I'll, conversely, as you probably know, I love it. I mean, I've watched every episode, and watching this again, all it did was whetting my appetite to watch it right back from the start again until they bring out Series 10. Although I have to say, Series 9 was a bit of a disappointment for me. I didn't feel it had the same spark, and a lot of people felt that it didn't have the same spark. But this particular episode, and this particular place in the whole of the series, I loved it. I do. I can't get enough of Larry. I even watched. There was a Larry David film. I can't remember the name of it. But he wasn't kind of playing himself, and he wasn't doing the Larry David character, but he was a very similar type of person. I think he only kind of can play one person, but hey, if that's all I could do, I'd be quite pleased with that. But and love that as well. Love the film. So again, I saw a review and somebody said I just can't get enough of Larry David, and I think I'm probably in that camp as well. I'll give it 4. I was tempted to give it 4.5, but I think it has got headroom to do greater things. So I'll give it 4 out of 5. So what's that? 7.5 out of 10?
Yes, sounds about right. That's not bad, is it? For a show that's been going for, as you say, well, they're shooting their 10th series as we speak.
Are they?
I believe so.
Excellent.
Have I got the numbers right? Yeah, I think it started last month as we speak.
Excellent.
I think I've read that somewhere. It must be true. It were on web.
All right. What's the homework, Doctor?
Now, here's the thing. I haven't seen it. It's one of those lucky dip things. Although I'd be quite... I've got to be careful with you because... I don't know. I'd be cautiously optimistic because of at least 2 of the actors in it. But it takes us back to 2004. It's actually inspired by a mate of mine, a young chap called James. So if you're listening, James, thank you very much for this suggestion. He's obviously heard the Slab before, because it's a bit like Larry David having a view on a special nut and fruit mix. He said, you know what you should do on the Comedy Slab? But I like it. I welcome it. And you, dear listener, can get in touch via the social media we're going to tell you about in a mo, and suggest a show we should dissect on the Slab. But anyway, this stars Matt Berry, who is not the show Toasted, but it's the same channel, Channel 4. Are you a fan of Toasted? I think we've talked about it. You like it?
Abandoned Ship? Yeah, I'm a very big fan of... I know. I think I know what this is. He's the co-star is an American guy.
Oh, well, no, there's the guy from the IT crowd. Is it Iode?
Richard Iode, yeah.
If I'm saying that correctly. Iode, I beg his pardon. And Matt Berry. And, I'm so new to this show, I haven't done all my research, but I've got the next week to do that. So you may well be right. But anyway, did you want to have a stab at the title?
No, I thought it was Snuffbox, but it isn't, is it?
No. We'll do that another time, maybe. It's Garth Marenghi's Dark Place.
Oh, wow.
2004.
2004, yeah. Garth
And
Marenghi.
you can see this on All 4. Certainly no problem finding it, because the great thing about All 4 is it seems to, or a lot of shows don't have any sort of sell-by date in terms of disappearing. BBC, please note. But anyway, so that's available certainly within the UK. No problem finding that via channel4.com. But we should warn again, as with Larry David, I mean, it will be family friendly talking about it, but the show itself is, well, by Channel 4's standards, and you might argue they're different to others, but they say no one under 16. That's the recommendation.
Okay.
Which, of course,
episode,
guarantees
or?
anyone under 16 wants to see it. Let's go for Ep 1 of Series 1. Shall we
Okay.
not? In fact, I think there might only be the one series. But yeah, let's... So we've got a fighting chance. It's called Once Upon a Beginning, the episode title. So, yeah, and a very young Matt Berry staring at me out of the photo that goes with it.
All right, we'll reconvene at a similar time next week to pick that one apart and see what we made of it. Garth Marenghi's Dark Place, Series 1, Episode 1 as the homework. That's it for another episode of the Comedy Slab. Thanks for being with us. As Adrian said, there are lots of places that you can find us, like Spreaker and Stitcher and Spotify, Apple Podcasts,
YouTube,
Apple Crumble. I got sidetracked there. I'm doing the shopping list.
Motherhood and Apple Pie. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And
YouTube,
in terms of social medias, we are on Twitter and Facebook, so just at Comedy Slab at each of those. And do please subscribe to the show. We'd love a nice, generous star rating. As we try and give a generous star rating to the shows we review. We'd like a review from you if you trundle along to iTunes / Apple Podcasts. That would be warmly received.
And so tune in next week when you can find out, just purely by coincidence, if a dog bites Adrian's penis.